Welcome to the Warrior Razor podcast. We're your hosts, Angela
and Carrie.
We all need help and support to stay future focused and challenged to courageously pursue the life God has called us to live. What we do matters.
Here on the Warrior Razor podcast, we seek Jesus first and use the skills, talents, and passions he has given us second.
Well, we are so excited to have a very special guest with us today on the show, Michelle Bishop. She's the head coach and co-founder of The Ladies Edge. She's got tons of fitness accolades and just so much experience in the fitness and nutrition industry. But her mission is to help women break free from the lies and limitations that have been placed on them both mentally and physically. With an amazing culture and 23 minutes of high-intensity weight training, she's helping women acquire so many things into their lives, one of which is time. Her belief is that health and fitness should fit around your life, not your life having to fit around health and fitness. But what she's most known for is her ability to connect with women in a raw, authentic way in a very filtered world. And she wholeheartedly believes in her mission and shows up for a live workout every day with her community. Oh, this girl is amazing. She is authentic. She is the real deal. And as we're heading into this next episode of the series of Small Beginnings, we are just so excited for you to hear from her. So without further ado, let's meet Michelle.
Well, Michelle, we are so excited to have you on the podcast today. And in our introduction, we gave some of the more formal information about you and the Ladies Edge. So right now, I just want from your mouth kind of that 30,000 foot view. What do you want people to know about Michelle?
Yes. Well, hello. I am Michelle Bishop. I am the founder and co-owner of The Ladies Edge. But more so than that, I am a daughter of a mighty king. I am a wife and a mom to two. I have a little 5-month-old and then a little girl named Rory, who's almost 6. And it's been an incredible journey. I tell people all the time, my journey has been a complete roller coaster. I am probably the most spontaneous person that you will ever meet. I jump and I don't even know what's ahead, but I always just have that faith and I just jump and I just know. And sometimes it's landing me in funky spots. We're going to talk about that today. But I tell people all the time, they're like, how did you get where you are? And I'm like, I just keep moving forward. And sometimes, you got that silly term, but you just keep moving. And so it's been a beautiful journey. My past, I come from the fitness bodybuilding world. So I've been in the industry for a decade, like you read in my bio. And I come from the women's NPC division. So for those who don't know what that is, it's a very competitive side of the bodybuilding world. The NPC is like the big leagues. And so for those who know what they're talking about, I took second at nationals for women's physique. So I was one place away from being an actual IFBB pro, which is super cool. Wow. That was my dream back in the day. Yeah. And I had this turning point where I fell head over heels in love with Jesus. I grew up as a Catholic and I definitely had beautiful fruits in my life of just being a great person. Yeah. My household, my parents are the most amazing. They're God-fearing. They're incredible people. We were raised in the most loving family. So we knew love, we knew happiness, but I didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. Yeah. And the fruits of the Spirit probably weren't there that they should have been to really show that I was walking with Christ. And so in 2015, I met somebody, totally changed my perspective on what a real relationship with Jesus looked like. And I started having all these convictions about being in the bodybuilding world and the life that I was leading and the life that I was portraying via social media. We'll talk more about that, but I had built a following of 264,000 people at that point. So wow. Of eyeballs on everything that I was doing. That's kind of when social media was just starting to pick up. So that was a really big deal at that time. I built that following in like a year-ish time frame. So big influence, very young, 21 years old. Wow. It's a lot to deal with when you're that young, trying to step into who you are. Yes. And found Jesus. I very loudly started proclaiming my faith and I started losing followers. We'll talk about that. But I tell people I'll lose followers all day if it means that I'm following Jesus and I'm shouting his love. And it's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I have been able to build the most incredible, loving, loyal brand, more so than I ever thought I could, literally just following the steps that Jesus has put in front of me and the story that he's every day just unraveling before me. It's so beautiful. My story, I'm like, I can't even just wait for what's ahead. I think about the past 2 years and all that he's just said, like, hey, the more you trust, the more I'm going to show you. And it's been beautiful. So I built this thing called the Ladies Edge. We've served thousands, tens of thousands of women. And it's been incredible. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. And before Angela moves on, this was not part of the plan, but
No,
I
you're
just
fine.
have to say, when you said just keep moving forward, that is one of my favorite perspectives to help transform people's minds with so many areas of their life. So I'm just so excited for this interview.
Yay.
And let's keep rolling here with the questions.
Well,
Go ahead, Angela. Sorry about
No,
that.
my mind is already running like all the things that we want to ask Michelle, like what our viewers or what our listeners would want to ask Michelle. But you talked about, you were very young when you began this journey. You had a foundation of faith, but you kind of came to know Jesus as we either say you're building the car as you're driving it, or building the plane as you're flying it. So as you were building a business, you were also building a relationship with Jesus. And we're currently in the series of small beginnings on the podcast with Warrior Razor. Will you kind of take us back, peel the layers back, open the curtain, show us behind the stage of what those small steps look like as you began this journey? You went from fitness to the Ladies Edge, and what it looked like for your small beginnings.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, you may laugh, and whoever's watching, if you know me, you're like, small beginnings is small as a word in Michelle's life, because
You are a small person though. So when you meet Michelle in person, Carrie is very tall. If you haven't seen Carrie in person compared to Michelle, it's like night and day. So that's probably the only small thing about you is your height.
It's been like big things come in small packages. He's always spoke that out over me. But in true, I mean, in complete honesty, everything that I've ever done, it's been very passion filled. And so, regardless if I was like a professional, like I've always believed that I was a professional. Like that's just, maybe it's a bad thing, but I know what I bring to the table. I bring love, and I bring, I'm going to learn it if I don't know it, and I'm going to do a great job at it. And so I would say my small beginnings were simply just believing that I could and taking the proper steps. So like to somebody else, I tell people all the time. And as I was preparing for this today, I remember we did the chat with y'all's group prior, and we were talking about like your circle and surrounding yourself by those people. And I said that I did not have a group of 5 people really worthy of like saying like, I want to be like them around me. So I created it. And so I always say like, you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. That's a big saying. And I didn't have those 5 people that really were living the lifestyle that I wanted. So I started creating it. And so I started YouTubing people that I want to be like. And so I found a girl at that time, Danny Johnson, and her story was relatable to mine in the aspect of her being young. And she started a business out of the back of her car at a payphone booth. And I was so inspired by this. And I remember, I didn't tell you guys this part, but I was 18 years old. I didn't go to college. I started personal training right out of high school. I went and got certified. I barely passed the test. I had the training directors in there laughing at me as I walked by with my first client. And I remember these snickers, just like in the back of your ears, and the enemy constantly always like, you're never going to make it. You're not good enough. But I knew, like, I was like, y'all don't know what's inside here. Like, you have no idea. And so I always led with that. But I met this guy, and he said, if you want to be in that room bad enough, you're going to get in that room. And so I took my entire paycheck. I had a little red Chevy Aveo at the time. My seats were knifed. It's all I could afford. John met me, my husband, in that car where I had to roll down the windows by hand. And my head's like out the window, my hair, but I felt so beautiful. I was on my way to have a date with John. And I remember driving that all the way to Atlanta and put my whole paycheck, and I went and sat in a room 2 days at Danny Johnson's event when I was 19 years old, fresh out of high school. And so I'd ask people, I'm like, how bad do you want it? Like, I didn't go to school. I didn't have money to get there. I don't remember how I paid for my hotel. I probably stayed with that dude, which is totally unbiblical. But I did what I had to do at that point, what I thought was right to get in that room and do that. And so small steps for me was doing what I could do in that time and making excuses weren't a part of my vocabulary. Like our manifesto for TLE, like we say, excuses aren't in our vocabulary. So even though somebody's success or something may seem so big at that point, like that doesn't have to be your starting point. Like something tangible where you're like, that's a big goal, but I'm going to someone drained the savings to go to that or whatever it is. Like that has, you have to pray about that and feel good about that. But
Yeah.
that's what I've always done is I've always said yes to opportunities which propelled me in some sort of or some way or fashion.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk through this, I feel like you might be really challenging the person that's risk averse because not everybody is ready to like jump and go. But also sometimes when you sit in the stillness and you have that I'm gonna analysis paralysis, you're gonna have that
Mhm.
fear to move forward. But
Yeah.
also for people that are like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna move forward. Sometimes I think on the other side of that, there's a lot of imposter syndrome because you're doing
Mhm.
it before you're fully ready. So
Mhm.
talk about the wrestle that you might have had with either one of those two things. I don't feel like just knowing who you are that you have a lot of like buyer's remorse. You're just like I'm going to do the thing, but I don't- talk through that concept a little bit for us.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people, like you said, it's there is an imposter syndrome, and I wouldn't say I don't have that. I feel like I still to this day there is the enemy's always out here. Like, but did God really say? Like, you can do this,
Mm,
but did God really say?
Mm.
And I that's always something like every single day when you wake up, you have to like put your feet on, armor yourself with the, armor, completely armor yourself up. And knowing like, God calls, what does he say? He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so I'm like, you know what? Like I literally speak like a third grader. Like I my vocabulary isn't great. Like genuinely, like when I listen to myself talk back on this, I will have skipped words in saying what I say. Like I've heard myself speak on stage and I'm like, ooh, like, but it's, you will never question the passion and the love
Yeah.
that I do
Yeah.
and for the people that I'm speaking to. And so I always tell people, like, regardless whether you're ready or not, you have to believe in yourself so much where you're gonna start dreaming about it. You're gonna start waking up in the middle of the night. You're gonna cry about it. You're like, I'm not content with where I am. Like I saw one of the questions, like, what's your why? I'm like, what is my why? I can't, I would be being fake if I was like, oh, it's X, Y, and Z, like my family or this. Like, yes, they're a big purpose in what I do, but I can honestly say, like, my why, I want to live a passion, purpose filled life. Like, that is what I get excited about. Like, and then knowing my daughter gets to watch that, like, that is freaking cool. And so I
Mhm.
tell people, like, if you think about making that leap of faith, like John has always told me, hey, make the leap of faith and then figure out how to freaking fix that gap. Like then you
Mhm.
got to go build the gap, but you got to take the leap. You got to take the jump and then figure out a way to make it happen. But those
Mhm.
people who aren't taking the jump are never going to experience or see like what's truly out there. And I
Yeah.
don't think enough people get enough skin in the game to make it really hurt, where now they have no option other than to make it happen. And so
Right.
I think that's what I keep doing is like, well, I've already invested in that. So if I don't make this happen, then that's really going to stink. And so that's kind of how I've lived is just do it.
Mhm.
you went to that conference with that Danny lady, and then you kind of absorbed all that, and you're like a sponge soaking it all in. Tell us how you went from the timeline of competitive lifting, competitive fitness industry, all of that, where there's this platform where you are exalted on that stage, to then to have this mindset shift where you wanted to be God honoring what you did, but then how did you birth the Ladies Edge? Talk to us about that process.
Yeah. So I started really when I really started getting into scripture. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I love Jesus. And this might be humbling to the core for some or challenging some, but a lot of people say I love Jesus, but they've never even opened their Bible. And a lot of people are like, what's God's will for my life? And I'm like, it's very clear, like to live a God honoring life where you attract people to Jesus Christ. And
Yeah.
you're being a good shepherd and like pointing them to him. And I'm like, if you get in the word, it is so clear the life that he wants you to live. And I challenge anybody who's watching this, like the Bible's not intimidating. It's really fun and very cool to read. I've always used the excuse that I don't understand it. And then when I got into like the New Testament and I started reading it, I was like, this is clear as day. Like not understanding the Bible isn't an excuse. And it's not something like devotions are great, but it's not like God breathed the word of God. And I'm like, we have it right there. And so when I realized in 2015, like wholeheartedly that I wanted to walk with Jesus Christ. Like this man was walking so beautifully, and I saw like what a God-fearing, what that really looked like somebody on fire for Jesus Christ, and how free they felt, and like the convictions. I was like, I want that. Like that is really, really cool. Like I'm living a cool life over here, but that life seems so much better. I started getting into the word, and I actually started learning like what that looked like for me. And what I started realizing was, causing other people to lust and all these things, and self-pride and self-love, and in a world where it's like, love yourself, girl, you got this, you can do this on your own. Like I built this from the ground up. Like I built this, I did this. And that's what I used to live on. Like, yeah, me, like M-Show. And all these people are always like, M-Show. And I had to strip myself of that. And I was like, it was very hard to walk away from that. But I wanted to live a life where it's like, because of Jesus Christ and the words that he says, and turning and following, like praying about it and saying like, God is the reason that I threw my trophies away. Jesus Christ is the reason that I put my suits in the dumpster and was like, I don't want to cause anybody to stumble. I'm not even going to sell them because I don't want anybody else putting that thing on, like to the dumpster that it goes. And doing those things, I tell people like, I'm a very radical Christian. Like for me, God, I feel has always taken me, and like, cause I'm ADHD and I'm like, he takes me though. And he like, when he speaks loud. And I say it's because my ears are open though. Like I'm listening, I'm in the word, I'm ready to receive. I say, Lord, I'm ready to receive. I pray that all the time. Like, give me the ears to hear, give me the eyes to see, like, show me, like, you know me, like my mind's always like this. You have to show me what you want me to do. And I literally will call people and laugh and be like, you would not believe what just happened. That isn't like, that is 100% God, like right there, giving it to me. So I tell people all the time, like, you have to just ask for it, pray for it, know in your heart, like I made that transition, leaving that, giving it to God, and then he's wrote the rest of the story, like just leaning into his word. And anytime I have question, like it's black or white, like what does the word say? And if it borderlines that, I pivot and I go the other direction.
I love that.
Well, when you started out, you did not have the massive following that you have right now. Also, you didn't have and for those of you that don't know what the Ladies Edge is, will you kind of give like a little brief intro about that? And we talked about it in your bio, but also where the heart and the mission is behind that. And it's not necessarily that you have like a Christian ministry, so to speak, but you are very Jesus centered in all that you do. So will you give us a little like purview into that?
So the Ladies Edge is an online women's fitness community, 23 minutes, and it's in the comfort of your own home. And the reason that it was created, once again, is I walked away from the bodybuilding world, as you heard, throwing away all my stuff and just realizing like being in that world is not something that Jesus wants me in. And the gym life for me at that time was like, I was an addict. Like I needed that and I craved that. And the flesh was like, I can lift those things too. And so I was like, I just need to completely take myself out of that world for a while. And so I started doing stuff at home and realized like, this is epic. This is cool. Like I'm getting in incredible shape. Other women can do this too. Like, let's stop comparing ourselves to the gym. We don't even have time. A lot of us moms, like by the time you get to the gym,
Right.
could have already got my workout in. And so we created something to do in the comfort of your own home. But the idea, like Jesus, 100%, like if you hear what I just said, like removing myself from toxic environments, like doing something where I can come in here and focus on me. And then the foundation of food freedom, like part of my story that I didn't share was being addicted to food. Like I battled many different eating disorders, from binging to purging to nighttime eating syndrome. It's a real thing. It's terrible. And I battled all those things. And so I realized like Jesus doesn't want me in bondage anymore. And so I started making friends with food. So we've always said, burn your meal plans. And so any way that fitness could possibly put somebody into bondage, we're trying to free women of that. So we're saying like, no more meal plans. Like you can do this, you know how to eat right. Now it's giving yourself permission. Like there are because life moments, but we're going to fuel our body with the best because we're athletes, because we want to be good stewards of our bodies. And we're going to show up for 23 minutes a day, because that's really all it's going to take. Like we're going to show up, we're going to work hard, and then we're going to go do stuff with all that other time that we have now. So it 100%, like at the core of it, is because I tell people, like, I don't like preach in all my intros all the time, like Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Like I will if I need to or feel the need to. But at the core of it, like, why was TLE birth? It's because Michelle Bishop decided to step away from the bodybuilding world and step into something that I thought would honor Jesus, honor my body as a woman and a Christian, and do it the
Yeah.
right way. And that is what I think has propelled its success so much. So many women are like, heck yes, like I am 100% here for this.
Yeah.
So good.
I love it. I feel like it's so countercultural right now. And it's um, the authentic life that women are like seeking and wanting that we're calling the bluff of the diet culture and the all that stuff. So I love that. And you mentioned earlier about your followers, you had that huge following as a bodybuilder. And then can you tell us do you know the actual numbers? Like what'd you go down to when you brought Jesus into it?
Yeah, so it's been like almost 7 or 8 years now that it's been slowly dwindling, but 264,000 was the peak. And that's when I did my national show and all of that. And then I asked my husband to marry me and all this craziness. So there are many different factors than just becoming a Christian on my social media platform. But that was what really started noticing numbers just plummeting. And I went from 264,000 to today having 192,000. Like I said, many different variables, but I mean, in that time, just watching numbers literally falling off I was very loudly. I mean, I went from complete bodybuilder, flexing, ab shots, veins all down my stomach, posting it all. Like, check out these striations in my glutes. Like, I posted it all to basically being like, that is a sin. You're doing that. Jesus is tickled right now. And so I mean, I was any new Christian would be, just on fire and just this conviction. And I think anybody who is mature enough in their walk was probably like, God love you, Michelle. She's just going for it right now. I was so bluntly just saying how I
I
felt, and
love that.
and a lot of people were just like, dang, like she's not my cup of tea anymore. And that's okay. But I
Yeah.
think I found a beautiful middle ground now where
Yeah.
I don't want to turn everybody off. I don't want to be lukewarm, but I also want to be able to speak to those
Yeah.
who I believe could use a message. So I try to share my thing a little bit more eloquently nowadays.
Well, there's something so inspiring about the passion of a new believer who is
Yeah.
so on fire, but then coupled with the spiritual maturity of someone who's walked with Jesus a little, just
Yeah.
it doesn't we don't have to have walked with him for a really long time for spiritual maturity to develop.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can happen really quickly.
Yeah.
But throughout your walk, because you're still pretty young, but I think even just hearing you talk, it's evident that you are so on fire for God,
Yeah.
that passion still percolates within you. And to be near you, you're going to get the spillover effect from that. So I think it's a really special thing to behold, to witness, to see, to recognize. And you still live pretty out loud on social media, but you do it, and I've witnessed it, and Carrie and I both have witnessed it in a God honoring way. So I
Yeah.
think that that's really precious.
Yeah.
That you've had that pendulum swing, but now you're kind of coming back to a balance in the middle. So that's special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's important for our listeners to hear because I do feel like so much of entrepreneurship in today's day and age is about social media and is
Yeah.
about those number of followers and about that influence that you have on people. And so to hear that um if someone does have a small business that's listening and doesn't bring Jesus in but feels God calling them to bring Jesus in, like to hear how you have survived, and your entrepreneurship has survived in that storm, I think could be really exciting for someone to hear. And it's nice to know too that with social media, there is like a learning curve, right? There's
Yeah.
those flops and failures that you're like, and I don't like the word failure. It's just an opportunity to grow and change and become better. So maybe flops is a better word, but those flops that we have, we don't have to be so scared about those. Like, especially like you were saying, when God calls you to something, he equips you to do it. And so we can rest in him with no matter however many flops we take in our businesses.
Will you tell us a little bit about some of your face plants along the way? Not that we need to hear it to make ourselves feel better, but also like because you started the show off with, well, maybe it will make somebody feel better. I don't know. But you started the show off talking about how it's the relentless pursuit. You keep on keeping on, and so in spite of those flops, and to get to where you are, you had to have had some. So will you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I will. I'm going to circle to that in 1 second. I wanted to real quick piggyback off what you said, Carrie, because I
Yeah.
think it's so important. The fact that you were talking about, oh, I just lost it. You were talking about success and the followers. And oh, I was going to just say to anybody who thinks that, they're scared of the business's growth and introducing faith into their business, the Ladies Edge, I just want to make sure that this is said. My business and my success today is 10, 20, 100 times more than it ever was without having Jesus Christ in the core of
Yeah.
it, in the center of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's scary for so many people, especially when they have such a big brand. That was
Right.
completely like my brand was completely different than what I am today. So I had to go into a wilderness walk for 2 years, and that could be a flop where you're like, where is my sunshine? Like, is this ever going to come? Am I ever going to have an answer? But God was just refining me. Like, I feel like I was just going through the fire, and it was very lonely. I think that was Satan. Like, Jesus was in the wilderness and Satan, but did God really say, like, over and over and over? And, like, were you a one-time hit? Like, were you this? And like, just constantly in my ear. And can I really do this? And I didn't know. And I tell people like Will Ferrell says, I keep throwing darts at a dartboard till one stuck. And I tried many different things, but my success today with the Ladies Edge and the women that I'm getting to bring along with it, like building my actual team and helping, their families and having Christ be in our HQ and in our program has been incredible. And I do it in a way anybody can do it how they want. Like, if you want a completely faith-based business where you shout it from rooftops, that is phenomenal and that is incredible. For me, my business is fitness. And so I want to help women. That's what God's called me to do, is free women from these lifestyles. And
Yeah.
so the beautiful part is I can share a message while helping women do this, but I try to also respect that they're coming here for one thing and they pay me for that one thing. And so when the time is right, I try to shine Jesus's light at the appropriate time. And so I never leave that out, but I give them what they're coming for. And I think that that's just really important to tell people. So
That's smart business right there. Thanks for saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I don't want to be like, Jesus, 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 but they're like, I came here for fitness. Like, you're
Right.
not
Right.
honoring why I'm here. So
Yeah, that's good.
cool. Yeah. And a lot of people have found Jesus through TLE, and that's been very incredible. But flops and failures, there was this one opportunity. I don't think I told you guys this, but it was me teetering with the old world versus the new world. And I was given this incredible opportunity. I maybe did tell you guys this already, but I was given this incredible opportunity. And this man came to me who I've always adored, great mentor of mine. And basically was like, hey, I want to train you, but I want to train you for life. And I want to put you on a meal plan. And at this point, I'd stepped away from the dieting culture. I had put weight on. My metabolism was trying to figure out like normal foods versus the competitive lifestyle. And I so badly just wanted to go back to my 2-a-days and my meal plan. And I wanted all this. And so I was like 7-8 months in, on my new lifestyle, and I was gaining this weight, and he brought this opportunity to me. And it had, there was an incredible income to be made on the other side of it. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, there's a financial opportunity here, doing something that I love. I'm getting mentored again. And there's like some security there with a meal plan, workout regimen. And so I was like, oh, it's the best of both worlds, like I'm going to be free, but I get to go back to this. And it was Easter weekend, and 2 times I had a message. Like I said, God's very, very clear to me. And I remember in church, we did a sermon, and there's talking about the scripture where it says, but who do you say I am? And he says, you are the great I am. And so I wrote that on my hand because I was wrestling like, am I on a line right now? Like, am I like dipping my toe back into the old lifestyle? Like, I want to be free, but now I'm struggling. So maybe I'll try this. And so it said, I wrote, he is the great I am. And so we were watching God's Not Dead 2. And there's this part where she was like, he's the great I am. And I started sobbing in the movies because right then and there, I was like, it's clear, like God, he says he is who he says he is. And so why am I straddling this line? Like, if he says that I can be free, if he says that I can walk freely, if I don't have to worry, like work through these eating disorders and all of this, like he will free me of this. I just have to stop letting go of my comfort, and I have to give it to him. And so I made a phone call sobbing, like, I can't do this. Like, as much as my flesh wanted to cling to this comfort, I had to say, I can't do this. And it was literally like, and I walked it out. And I remember that day I was like, put your big girl pants on. Like, you want this, you got to go get it. And so
Yeah.
that moment, that was a very defining moment for me because, yeah, I'd thrown the trophies away. I was feeling good back then. Like, and then all of a sudden I started getting tempted when it was getting hard, you know? And then I walked myself free. So I would say that that was an incredible flop. It was a beautiful distraction. But I tell people, like, you got to say yes to opportunities. That's something I said yes to, but it wasn't for me. And
Mhm.
Well,
so
yeah, and it's like that decision between right and almost right. It's
Mm.
such a
yeah,
fine line. They're both good things. Not saying that what that gentleman was offering was a bad thing. It was just God had
for
made
me,
for you. He had very
yes.
clearly spoken to you
Yeah.
to turn and walk in the different direction from
Yeah.
that lifestyle and that path.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's the decision between right and almost right. And you talked about the enemy and how he comes and starts to whisper those doubts and those insecurity. I mean, that's what he came to do from the jump. Brought
Mhm.
in manipulation,
Yeah.
tried to skew the truth of what God had said, and
Yeah.
then we get it twisted, and then we get off path, and hopefully we can get back on eventually. But some of us take a really long detour because we doubt what we heard the Lord say, and He's like, I don't change. If I said it then, I mean it right now for you. So I
Mhm.
like how
Love
you,
that.
even begrudgingly, if you're not watching Michelle, she kind of you made a little face about how awful and visceral it was to walk away from that. But you figured it out. And I think there's a lesson in that. So that's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. There's
Yep.
actually a YouTube video when I was live in that moment, that exact moment, and I went live. It's on my YouTube channel, and it's in the car, and it's I actually go really into the sex topic because I start realizing how beautiful that is to be saved between marriage. And so I have this like moment where I just like lose it. But I mean, like, we're talking like ugly,
Ugly face.
and I'm telling that exact story about walking away and God saying, like, who do you say I am? And then I relating it to like, becoming pure again and like wanting to walk with Jesus. And but this moment of just complete surrender, and it's documented, which I think is just really, really cool. So that's on YouTube if anybody ever wants to go watch that.
Yeah, that reminds me of this story in Mark chapter 9 where this father comes up to Jesus and he asks him to heal his son.
And he says, I believe, but help my unbelief. And I feel like that's a prayer that I have
So
just
good.
grasped hold of in my life personally. It's like, Lord, I believe you've told me this, but help my unbelief, because I know it just creeps in for all of us.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other flops or any other learning opportunities along the way?
Yeah, I always tell people there was one flop, and I was a part of a a big business endeavor. It was a multi-million-dollar business for us, and it flopped. And long story short, some just really unfortunate stuff happened where it got pulled from us and hundreds of thousands of other people. And within a couple months, we had to decide what we were going to do as a family. And thank goodness, Jesus had already known. We had been starting our boot camps with not the intention of this ever happening to our business, but at that point, John was like, what are we going to do? Like, what's our plan? And I've always just been like, we're good. Like, I don't really sweat. He's like, why don't you sweat? And I'm like, we're going to be good. I just know it. We're okay. And so we started doing this. And I tell people all the time, like, even though that business, like, it didn't end up being something that's still with us to this day, the amount of like the leadership, the way that it grew me as a leader, and the hard talks that I had to take, like people calling me and, loving on me and championing me, but also like refining me as a leader and a person, and the opportunities that I got to speak. If I didn't say yes to that opportunity, even though it was a lot, like you look back and you're like, man, was that a waste? Like, that was a lot of years of my life that just got pulled from me. Like, what else could I have been doing with something that would still be to this day, like benefiting my family in ways? But it was a beautiful flop. Like, once again, like, I said yes to something, and it raised me as a leader. So I tell people, I'm like, I'm just a yes man. Like, I pray on it. If it is honoring to Jesus and it doesn't go against, like, you'll know. I feel like you just get this guilt automatic, the conviction deep where you're like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know. And you'll get in it and you'll spend a couple years there. And if it doesn't, serve you long term, it's just like I took away some incredible things. And so I would say that would end up being a flop, but there was a lot of incredible things that came out of that too. So once again, just saying yes to opportunities, and doors will open. And that made me a much better leader.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to the idea of that there are things in our life that are allowed for our good and God's glory. Like that, that there is good that came from that, and there's glory that God is going to get because of what you experienced through there and what you learned through there, and how you're now going to use those lessons in what He's asking you to do now. So nothing is wasted. I mean, nothing is wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that company is the reason that I got baptized. Like somebody was a part of it, but I got baptized like in a horse trough in Texas through that,
Nice.
through that opportunity. And so
Nice.
that's
Yep.
always very cool to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Michelle, as we're wrapping up here, are there any is there anything that we haven't yet talked about that you really had planned on or wanted to say to our audience?
Gosh, more than anything, my biggest thing is, work hard. I know this is like for small beginnings and entrepreneurs and girls who are, or men who are setting out to do something with their life. I think it is so incredible. Like for those who feel a calling on their life to get outside and create. I love creating. I think it's such a beautiful gift. And don't ever let anybody, dull your sparkle. Some woman said to me a long time ago when I was on an airplane and I was probably 19, and she said to me, she goes, "It gets really lonely at the top."
Mm.
And I really couldn't understand at that point what she said because or what she meant. But I was like, oh, sure, it's kind of lonely. Got some haters, got some trolls, whatever. But it does, as you journey on, you start to realize like when you start finding success and these things, a lot of people there's jealousy and people that you thought were incredible friends or business partners or whatever it may be. Like it can get lonely at the top. But remember, like your circle doesn't have to be super big and find those who do come alongside you and champion you. And it doesn't have to be like a super successful person next to you, but you will find those people that come alongside you and believe in you and love your heart and what you're about and your mission. And so despite like every step, every part of this journey brings its challenges. And sometimes you're just like, man, I didn't realize it could get like this or it could be like this. But what a beautiful thing it is to get out there and create. Just you have to work hard. I tell people it's one thing to be a visionary, it's one thing to dream it, it's one thing to talk it, but then you got to go to work and you got to, set the bar high for yourself and then set those little things to, I'm going to have myself do this today. And I mean, you can get stuck in the getting ready stages. You can do the little things that just keep you busy. There's busy work and then there's work that's actually going to move the ball forward. And
Yeah.
you got to do the stuff that's going to move the ball forward. And so, and at the end of the day, like I said, as long as you go to bed at night, give it to Jesus, pray, 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 ask him to give you clarity. If you're like me, like I said, Lord, I had the faith the size of a mustard seed at the beginning. I'm like, people talk about it. They talk about you. I see the life that you're living, but like, you got to show me. Like my mind is so busy. I'm a busy bee. I don't know what to do. I live for myself a lot. Like it's Michelle's world and I don't want it to be that way, but you got to speak. You gotta show me. And so he's like, well, number one, you got to get in my word. Number two, you got to have your eyes open and you got to listen. And so I just think like living with your eyes open, when those opportunities come where you're like, this is one of those things where God's like, hey, are you choosing this morning? We talked about this when you were reading. Are you going to do this or this? You got to go do it. So that's my biggest thing is just hustle, lean into his truth and do it. Do the work.
Yeah.
The work.
Action to the faith. It's good.
Yep. That's so good.
This is one I think people have to listen back again because you dropped a lot of nuggets and we talked a lot about a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. But I just have enjoyed watching your journey, getting to know you and your heart. And you referenced that you spoke to our women's group. So if you don't know about our group, we have a cohort of women with the Warrior Razor Ministry. It's called the Warrior Women Tribe. And Michelle was gracious enough to come on there and talk to the group of leaders and entrepreneurs that we have. Very similar content, but always a blessing to have you. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they learn about what you provide to the world in the most beautiful way that you do?
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, my Instagram is at mshell with 5 L's. And that's always been funny to say. And then we are theladiesedge.com, the most epic sisterhood on the planet. This is, I was showing the girls before. This is a little look into, this is my basement, but this is our.
I love it.
She's showing us, if you're not watching, she's showing us her very professional studio, not
That's
just
so cool.
a basement.
No, yes.
You didn't talk about this on this podcast, but when you share with our group, you started taking video in your dad's
Garage, right?
Garage, yeah.
Garage, yeah.
I love that.
Nice eraser stain on it, spandex. I walked in, John was like, could you please not wear that next time on camera?
Love it. I love it.
mind and all of that.
It's the small beginnings, and we don't despise them. If you
Right.
get stuck in feeling like you have to have perfection, you'll never do it because none of us are perfect. We
Yep.
all fall short. So I love your story that you're just, let's do it. Let's be faithful with what the Lord's given us, steward it well, and you
Yeah.
are an example to a lot of us, and we appreciate your time here. So yes, follow Michelle, see what she's about. She's got her programs on theladiesedge.com. And Carrie and I just are so grateful to have you. We just appreciate you.
Anybody on, just know that I love you to pieces. I know I am a lot to listen to and I get very passionate. It's just who I am. It's just what I do. But thank you for taking the time to hear my heart and the way that I love Jesus. It may be different than some, but it's the beautiful part. It's our personal relationship and he is very special and dear to me. And so thank you, Angela and Carrie, for giving me the opportunity to share all the things and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yes,
Yes.
awesome. Well, to all of our fellow warrior raisers, aim your arrows well.
Thank you again for listening in today to the Warrior Raiser podcast. Angela and I are just so grateful for you. So thanks for listening today. Wanted to remind you, if you have Instagram, Facebook, those two socials, find us at Warrior Raiser and get to know us a little more, see our posts, things like that, like our page. We would appreciate it. And we mentioned today about the tribe, Warrior Women Tribe, and we want to get you information on that if you want more. So head to the website, warriorraiser.com, and you'll see a tab for the tribe and find more information there. Thanks again for listening today, and we'll see you next time.